Our complex generally consists of an unrestricted zone. The components of an unrestricted zone are pre-operative area, post-operative area, and the support areas. The support areas are basically the waiting area. Comes the semi-restricted zone. This is the area which is purely for the staff and nothing to do with the patient. These are the work area for storages, change rooms which are required for the staffing to come inside, scrub facility, and the peripheral supports like the stat labs and other things which we do. Then the restricted zone or the sterile core. This will be the actual operating room or the operating space and the sterile core. Now, when we talked about substeriles have been removed, the sterile core is something which has come into prominence. It is not a very clear mentioning by the guidelines, but you see that there is a subtle way of telling, look, you need to make a sterile core in an operating room, and the supply of instruments have to happen from the sterile core within the operating theatre complex. This is something which is a drift from the American style of hospitals to an HTM guideline, which is more British. British had the system of a loaded corridors. One is a dirty corridor, one is a clean corridor, and there used to be a supply, but Americans definitely said, no, don't get into all those mess, let it be like, do it. But finally, when you see these guidelines, you see that the Americans have come back to the HTM guidelines where you have to a sterile core, supply the material into the operating room, and let the dirty material can go from the other side. So typically what I've done is that I've picked up a couple of designs, what we have done, and which have been using and presently under construction. These are the hospitals which are being built. So I have taken one from Dubai and one from Kosovo. It's in Europe, and it's a country which is being supported by UAE. So we are doing a pediatric hospital there. So I'll be talking about the type of zones what we created and the flow patterns what we have done in this particular facility. You see the green portion what I have marked on is the unrestricted zone of the OR complex that includes the control station, transfer trolley bay. I'll talk about the transfer trolley base also further. Then there is pre-operative and post-operative area, the waiting lounge, and the phase 2 recovery. This is what is the complete unrestricted zone of an operation theatre complex. Then there is a semi-restricted, as what we saw the components, the change rooms, the storage facilities for the soil hold areas, and the dirty unity, the cleans of work stations, and the equipment store. All are part of the semi-restricted lead store. Even the scrub comes in the semi-restricted zone. And the other one is the major one, the restricted zone. The restricted zone is typically consisting of an operating room and a sterile core. Now you see, what we talked about as a sterile core is basically a corridor which is created. Instead of calling it as a dirty corridor, that's a space what we are using right now as a sterile material storage. And from there, it is a supply into the operation theatre complex. And this we have started doing with something called as storage walls. It is a instead of a pass windows at this point of time, we use pass walls. So if the trolley comes in, gets docked into the space, you open one side of it and the other side electromagnetically gets closed, and when you close this, and you can do it. And the layup of instruments can happen within the room. These are the support areas which are there along. So let's see the patient movement, how it happens. It goes from the pre-operative area directly into the operation theatre complex, so nothing to do much in the semi-restricted zone. Then again we move to the post-operative, and this is what the patient flow will be there in an operation theatre complex. Then the instruments. The flow of sterile goods is from the sterile store of the central supplies going into the sterile core area directly. It's a built-in systems, what we do. And the dirty goes to the decontam of the CSS department. So you see the flow-wise, it is not too much of a risk call. Of course, there is absolutely like the front is for the dirt and manpower to come in, whereas the rear entrance is taken for the sterile goods to go in. So the clean supplies are always maintained in a much cleaner fashion. The second example what I talked about is for a pediatric hospital. Now pediatric hospital has a little bit of a different requirement because pediatric patients are generally like to have their mother, especially the family, to be there with me before and post, pre and post surgery. So we have an unrestricted zone and a waiting area, which is common. We have made the pre-operative and post-operative as a common thing because mothers are going to be there at the time of before going for the surgery and coming out of the surgery. Then we have a semi-restricted, that's again the change room shown here, and also the support areas. And the restricted zone has operating room and the supply of sterile goods. Now the CSSD department is on the top, connecting to the sterile cord directly from the corridor, which is semi-restricted. You see the patient flow which is happening from the front door and going back into the pre and post-operative directly. The goods travel from the sterile store into the operation theatre from the rail, again the same system, and the dirty goes back to the decontamination. So this is the flow what is being followed again as per the guidelines. Now components, as we talked about, these are the semi-restricted zone components or the spaces what you create. But as per HPI 2014, there is no more anesthesia workstation required because there is no induction system which is followed in this guideline. So you basically do everything in the operating room. Now that is the reason why when we are talking about spacing of an operation theatre, why it can't be smaller or anything, it's because of this. You don't create another induction area for the anesthetist to work. You do well within the operation theatre, and that is what it has been done. And these are the things which have come up. So let's talk to the hierarchy, how it has been followed. Again, coming back to the slide of 1996 onwards, the journey to 2014. It was basically on the level of care what has been given, that is based on American College of Surgeons for anesthesia. That's what the parameter of which has been done. So there was a class A operating room. These operating rooms were basically 150 square feet because these were the ones which have infiltration blocks and with oral or intramuscular preoperative sedation was done. And then the class B operating room, which is of a 250 square feet. Comes the class C operating room. This was the one which was talked about as a major operating room of 400 square feet. Again, the changes from 2014 guidelines. Now this listing has become quite a lot. The 150 square feet room is no more called as class A operating room. It is just a procedure room. It is not a part of the operation center complex anymore. Comes the outpatient. This is called the outpatient operating room, which is 250 square feet, where your classification of CB level of surgery can be done in this. Not endoscopy, sir. Even for outpatient surgeries, for minimal invasive and wherever you feel that you don't require anesthesia and you are saying that confidently you can do with the sedation and other things, you can go in. And that's the outpatient. So the outpatient surgical department has come up and the ward complex will not take outpatient department. This is the standard operating room, which is of 400 square feet. Specialty operating rooms, now the sizing you see it is come to 600 square feet. So now OR complex, when we develop right now, all of them are around 600 square feet and 600 plus, because we also come up with something called as hybrid operating rooms. And the hybrid operating rooms are basically a combination of diagnostic equipment along with surgical facility. So the hybrid operating room basically takes intraoperative CT, MRI and vascular imaging technologies to be done in that. So there will be a minimum flow space of 650, but over and above that you also require spacing for the control station and the equipment rooms and all that to be done along with it. The consideration should be given for the surgical field separate from the diagnostic. The control rooms have been talked about to be provided. Then the structural support. Coming to MRI or a cath lab, there are requirements of structural, as all you know, that has to be also taken, and this also has an impact on the vibration and disruption of surgeries what can happen. So there will be a lot of work to be done on that also. And the imaging equipment is associating, so there is a lot of electrical and things and electronics which comes into picture. So the hybrid ORs are becoming too complex. We need time to tell us whether still we will be continuing with this or it is going to be, because as an observation from the market till date is that the hybrid OTs have not really taken up that many. 600 square feet operating rooms are definitely a plus for surgeons, they enjoy doing work there, but we have not seen hybrid being really appreciated. Because what happens is the manpower, what goes into an hybrid OT, instead of previously it was surgeon, anesthetists, nurses who are working, there's a technician, there's a radiologist, there's so many people coming in, the clutter is more. And 650 is not sufficient for that kind of a volume of personnel working inside an operation. So operating room dimensions, again, only for the architectural purposes, I have just drawn it down so that you can look at it. As you see, there is a very clear minimum dimension of one side has mentioned, so that you can't go on a 65 square meter of an operating room with something of 4 meter by 10 meter of a 12 meter. So this is something very important, that the minimum dimension has to be maintained of 4.6 as one leg, 6.1 for 40 square meter and a 60 square meter, and 7.3 meters is the length. So these are the challenges which are going to happen from the architect point of view, is that the grids what you develop. The 8 by 8 grids, when you do all these things, these are the things which are going to be more of a challenge to come in future. So coming to the pie chart and looking at all the things, what are the ones which are having a major consideration for operating theatre, the space consideration, as what we talked about all this time. These are the materials which are basically used in operation theatres. We are now a great fan of glass being used in operation theatres now, because if you can go to YouTube and you want to check, the glass is something which is found to be so tough. There are people who are weighing around 130 kg jumping on it and nothing happens to the glass. So such a good impact resistant material, and the amount of from the point of infection control, it is one of the best. The cleaning surface is very smooth and shiny, which is very good for an operating theatre. If you do a stainless steel shining operation theatre, still it gets warped, and when you look abnormalities of a person, when you look at the stainless steel thing. So that way it has done a great amount of service to the operation theatres, and glass operating rooms have become one of the most preferred operating rooms. And another advantage is the digital prints. You can have whatever you want of a high resolution, and you can put it, and you can get something of a products which make you feel soothing for inside the operating room. So that's about the paneling what we use. Technology wise, yes, integration of all these services will become much easier. It is not just a matter of networking or a Wi-Fi. It is the integration of the equipment through a hub, and the storage systems have become easier. Communication has become easier. So we have control panels. The surgical control panel will be having a clock, which is a general standard practices, lighting, isolated power supply. I hope everybody will be aware of it, that is now no more grounded power supply is being used. Environmental parameters of air conditioning will be taken care of, information and medical gases systems. Boom, some lighting controls. Lights have gone for a tremendous change. Again, LED lights have come in, and the lux levels and the kind of efficiency, and also in terms of air conditioning, it has been a great advantage of using LED lights as against to the thing. We talk about laminar air. Again, we are not a great advisors on laminar air, because laminar air is something, again, HTM guidelines as against American guidelines talk about 25 exchanges. And if you go on start using as a laminar air and using a 90 to 105 feet per minute second velocity of air to be given onto the surgical table, then the number of air changes jumps up to 80 or 90 air changes in a size of a room what you do, and doesn't make any sense having that kind of a volume of air being pumped into a room on a surgical thing. And contamination through air is partially around 25 to 30%. Rest is the personnel working in the theatre, and the cleanliness of the theatre is the one which stays there. So laminar is not, but definitely air which is filters with the terminal HEPA filters, and it can supply to or right onto the table, is good enough from the point of infection control for an operation. So the current trend of storage of integration of media, what is happening is that they have CCTVs and things where the information videos are being captured. In the pre-operative, intraoperative and post-operative, there are CD storages which is happening. That has been gone for a change now, because we call something of an integrated system, where we capture the videos, all the things into a central storage system, and do a central storage and access it wherever you want, while the procedure is on, and also afterwards for the period of time what is required. So the communication is being on a IP video platform systems, makes the OR more accessible for teaching and remote purposes. We'll talk about this further. Web browsing application also helps you in doing this. This is what the integration OR does. You can use it anything, like an endoscopy suite, from the specialty OT to the conference room to the standard operating room, going anywhere, doctor's office for his surgeon's office, get the information from the laboratories, having a kind of a teaching session, having an auditorium, all can be integrated with this particular information system what we are right now doing. Manpower efficiency. We touched upon this. The efficiency of manpower is good, but the more we are moving towards the hybrid, the number of people inside the OR complex is increasing. The more the number of people, the more the challenge of infection control. That's something which we are working on, and I'm sure hybrid ORs are not something which are very much in favor of this particular thing. And that's where we are still arguing about how we are going to go about. Then the sterile storage, as we talked about, there is interlock storage facility which is going to be provided. So that this is actually a much more efficient system, because it's like completely moving the instrument from the sterile store of a CSSD from the unrestricted corridor directly going to the OR complex and being docked right behind it. And then the dirt comes out, dirty material comes out and goes to decontamination. So this is basically a much more efficient way of using the sterile instruments. Rooms are bigger, so layup of instruments can happen right inside the operating room, and this is absolutely no problem. Because that's the only sterile core what you create in the operation theatre. So this is how the things have been done. Now, coming back again to the trends of the operating room, what we saw, yes, this was one. The second one was the drainage. Third was the circular light. Now we moved on to more of technology, what you see. You see a glass panel which is behind with all designs, high resolution pictures. You see booms, LED lights. These are some of the operating rooms what we have developed. A hybrid OR. No, we are not done. I was talking about the ultimately we did as a hybrid OR. You can see this is a kind of a panel what we have done. Ultimately, it has now limited to CAD plan itself. They are not really recommending that. So we have been not had enough success in hybrid ORs what we are right now. Thank you for listening to me. Where the CSSD design has to be such a way, I could have done that also, because we have done a facility where we have the CSSD on the roof and we have operating rooms below. So we have done the supply coming directly into the sterile core. So the supply comes directly into the sterile core, and there is in the front where the soil work room, that's where the decontamination room is. So we take the instrument there and give it to the directly on the decontamination. That's how we do it. When you want to do it, sir, absolutely operation floor is something what he is asking about. Is the height is a thing what we have to look up to. And second is that if I have an interstitial flow where I can keep my housing of my air handling units and mechanical systems, I will prefer to do it on any floor. But ideally when you talk about a ground plus 5 or a ground plus 6 structure, we recommend that take the operation theatre complex onto that, because you don't have to create another floor in between unless until you require to do something. With cement and mortar. Yeah. Cement and mortar is all fine, but how are you going to maintain the surface which is going to be scrubbed regularly? Nothing. You know, when you do a paint,
you can always put up HPL.
HPL laminates, as I said, when you talked about in the 17th century, that's wood. And HPL laminates are good. There is no doubt about it. HPL has been a generation ahead of that, and we are using it. But ideally, a surface which can be cleaned easier is something we like to have it, and it is being found from statistics, which I can share it with you, where infection controls have come down dramatically when you use glass panels. So that's why we say the paneling is important, and preferably we are now moving towards glass.